Welcome in, everyone, to another Patreon question show. I don't like to waste any of your time, so let's jump straight into the questions. So, first one from Chimo. Now that I've done a couple of drafts, I've seen players that have dropped significantly, Downs, Tucker, Levis from pre-draft rankings, and some that have gone up, seemingly out of nowhere. I don't know if it's out of nowhere. Rice, Mingo, Dell, A-Chain. Mingo is not out of nowhere if you were paying attention. Rice is a little bit kind of out of nowhere. Dell, hit or miss. And A-Chain, I was high on before the draft. But regardless, what is a good strategy for sorting through the early post-draft hype? So I know this question was asked a couple of weeks ago. And I would say that the key thing is to separate what's real and what's just hype. So you kind of have to look at that. I mean, there's a lot to consider, right? There's draft capital, players that got different draft capital from what we were expecting. I think Mingo is a good example. Mingo at 208, eighth pick of the second round, I think was an outlier. Whereas Rashee Rice, it's landing spot. Rashee Rice going at the 25th pick of the second is not out of the range of his outcomes, but going to Kansas City is a great landing spot. And then you have someone like A-Chain who, again, landing spot. And then for someone like Levis, he fell down the draft board further than we imagined. Josh Downs fell down the draft board. Sean Tucker was undrafted. Wrote about that in a DLF article. I'm still kind of surprised. But a good strategy is just to make sure that you are evaluating the player in their current situation based on their prospect profile, their draft capital, and their situation. Generally, if I had to put in order, this is an oversimplification, but if I had to put in order, draft capital is the most important, then prospect profile, and situation last. So that's why someone like Zach Charbonnet has not dropped off my rankings, because situation is the least important. I would say it's close between draft capital and prospect profile. All right. My strategy for the last two rounds of rookie drafts is looking for upside and potential opportunities. Is it better to target the running backs or wide receivers this year? And is Bennett worth a draft pick in Superflex? I have Stetson Bennett at 43rd overall in my Superflex ranking. So that's a mid-fourth. So I'd say, yeah, he's worth a draft pick. As for the, the other running backs and wide receivers in the later rounds, I'm generally noticing I'm more in on the running backs. Guys like Zach Evans, Israel Abanikanda, Eric Gray, Deuce Vaughn, Heaven Hull are targets for me. Chase Brown, I think, goes a little earlier. But those guys I named. Wide receivers, the one that I seem to get a little bit of is Michael Wilson, third-round pick. And he's going to be talked about in a video. It actually released yesterday. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, go click the Two Sleepers video. Conan and I talked about Michael Wilson, a great sleeper. And also Tank Dell. We talked about that in a video that's available. So you can check that out as well on the YouTube channel. In a hypothetical future from Elron Chubbles, all of the first four rookie quarterbacks drafted this year bust. What is the downfall that would lead each of them to this hypothetical scenario? Great question. For some of them, it's easy. Will Levis, his brain is the problem. The brain is the problem. Personality, a big problem. Brain is a problem. He doesn't really have the right temperament to succeed as a quarterback in the NFL. Now, if you're really talented, people look past a lot of temperament, a lot of problems. But his personality is not what you want to see. So that would be what takes Will Levis down, that he just can't get past that. A little Zach Wilson, if I may. Anthony Richardson, easy. He just can't pass. If he just can't pass, he's not going to succeed. You can't be horrible. You have to be able to pass the ball at least a competent level, like what Jalen Hurts has developed into. Jalen Hurts was a much better passer than Anthony Richardson coming in. Cam Newton, when he was successful, had some, good passing years at points. He's got to be able to pass. That's pretty easy for Anthony Richardson. The other two, Bryce Young, it's the height, really, because that's the only concern with Bryce Young. Otherwise, he's a perfect prospect. The height is the knock. So if somehow the height leads to just him not being able to play in the NFL, I think he's the safest. I think he's going to succeed. But it would be the height. CJ Stroud, not quite as good of a prospect as Bryce Young. The Texans organization, I think, would be what takes him down. They're just so incompetent. They traded their first-round pick next year. They lack weapons, a little disorganized. That would be the thing that kind of takes him down there. Now, I want to thank everyone who left reviews for the show on the Patreon. These questions come from a Patreon Discord. The link to the Patreon is in the description at the bottom of the show. You can always click on that, and every show. It's also at the top right corner. You click on that link, you'll get directly to the Patreon. Zephy said, just watched on my last Patreon show. Great show. I appreciate that. And from Scooter, he says, agreed. Great show. Informative, entertaining. Thank you. I love this format. I love doing this format, and I'm going to keep doing this format, especially, in the shorter format. It's nice. From Yako Brett, can you talk about quarterback, running back stacks and running back handcuffs? Is it worth it to do that? Quarterback, running back stacks, quarterback, wide receiver stacks. I don't usually do that unless it's a best ball. Then it helps. We see from best ball data, stacking helps you. So if it's a dynasty best ball, the same principles apply. So I would absolutely stack in a best ball. But if it's a regular lineup setting league, I don't notice that stacking helps. The data says it doesn't help. So I don't care about that at all. As for running back handcuffs, I'll draft them like any other running back. If I want to draft them at the value that they are, and they're a value to me at that stage, then I will absolutely draft them. Elijah Mitchell is one of the ones. Jalen Warren, another player I think is undervalued. Alexander Madison at times this offseason, depending on what his price was. Those are some guys who I found are undervalued. Other guys who are handcuffs, A.J. Dillon, probably overvalued. You have to see. It all depends on kind of the value. But Jalen Warren, Elijah Mitchell, and to some degree, actually, Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier showed a lot as a rookie, and I know that Bijan is there, but injuries happen. We know Tyler Algier can play. If he comes at the right value, I'm fine taking him. In a 6-point passing touchdown, is there a huge quarterback gap between Bryce and the other rookies? And where would each rookie rank? A 6-point passing touchdown hurts Anthony Richardson a little bit, helps Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I'm kind of an outlier, I think, in my rankings that I have Young first ahead of Richardson. That seems like a massive outlier. I think Richardson's a lot riskier than people think. I am not, convinced that he's going to be great, but maybe it's that I'm higher on Young. I'm honestly not sure because I have them both as second-round startup picks. CJ Stroud I have in the late second, but I would still go Young, Richardson, Stroud. That's not enough to make up the gap between Richardson and Stroud. Stroud scares me. The Texans scare me. From Scooter, excuse me. Is Dalvin Cook a torpedo that can potentially blow up just about any NFL team's running back room hierarchy and touch distribution? Should dynasty managers be holding off on running back trades? I think Dalvin Cook has more left than Ezekiel Elliott, but there are a few rooms. If he went to Miami, he would come in and be the starter. I'm not worrying about running back trades for this reason. I don't want to trade for running backs now because running backs seem to get hurt in training camp all the time. I want to trade for them on the point of the season when I know I need them or not at all and just wait for other players to get injured, values to come up. So, yes, I'm holding off on running back trades, but not because of Dalvin Cook. Similar question from Nessie. And I suggest watching the Dalvin Cook video that Conan and I did. It's a great video. And I would suggest you watch it. It's one of my most viewed videos in a long time. From Nessie, with the current situations of Eckler, Cook, and Saquon, who's most likely to move? Best landing spots? Saquon is not going anywhere this year. As someone in New York, he's going to be there. I don't know if they're going to work out a long-term deal, but he's not going anywhere this year. Eckler, I think same thing, is resigned to staying there, and I think he's going to be there this year. Cook is going to move. If they can't, they're either going to work out a new deal or Cook's going to be gone. And if Cook's gone, he's constantly linked to Miami. And Alexander Madison, of course, would be his backup to stash. But I would suggest pick up Ty Chandler. Dwayne McBride is already rostered from the rookie draft, but Ty Chandler, I would suggest, 5th-round pick from last year on Minnesota. Pick him up just in case. He's a much better prospect than Dwayne McBride. At what point, this is a complicated question from Christopher, but at what point do you look at your roster and say this is a contender? Fantasy Pros tools, the redraft tool is a good way to give you a little bit of help on that. I just compare it to the other teams. You got to look at your depth. If you don't have depth, you're not a contender. If you only have 2 quarterbacks in Superflex and nothing else, you're probably not a contender. If you don't have depth at wide receiver, same thing. At running back, you're probably not a contender. So, you got to make sure you're set across the board. But yeah, I appreciate everyone for watching the video. I appreciate everyone who's supported the YouTube channel. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And sign up for the Patreon if you want to ask questions for a future show. And yeah, I will see you all next time.